Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1986, written by Iceland D 96. John who died, John who's still alive. So a little background. My mom grew up in a small town and is still extremely close with many of her childhood friends, one of whose changed name is Liz. My family lives in the capital city, and the town she grew up in is about a 4 to 5 hour drive away. But my parents visit there multiple times a year, so keeping in contact is easy. Liz was married to a man not called John. John was a big, tall man, and one of my favorite uncles growing up. At some point, they moved from the small town about 40 minutes away into the countryside and set up their farm and had a child. About 5 or 6 years ago, John very suddenly passed away, leaving Liz and everybody else devastated. John was home alone and was doing his morning farm tasks when he had a stroke whilst outside in the freezing snowy cold. This was very early in the morning, and neither his wife or daughter would be home for another 6 to 8 hours, so he lay there outside unconscious until his wife finally returned home to find him dead. This next part I remember very, very well. I was at home and was helping my mom make dinner when Liz called to tell her of her husband's passing, and when my mom hung up the phone, she burst into tears and broke the news to the rest of the family. We all took it pretty hard. I was 19 or 20 years old and did not live at home at the time, so admittedly the next few days were a bit of a blur as I was not home constantly. I did not attend the funeral myself, and I'm not sure exactly why, but I will say, in itself, that is not strange for my family and how we usually do things. My siblings and I did not even go to my father's brother's funeral last year. That and it probably being a few-day affair, I would not have been able to get enough time off to do so. I vaguely remember my parents making the trip, and for some reason, I remember my mom stressing over what she would wear to the funeral. Over the following years, I remember his death being brought up quite a few times, and Liz either alone or with her daughter, coming to the capital to visit us and other friends. She usually stayed in our guest bedroom. Every time, I thought about John and his death, and how devastated she and they must still be, as his death was 100% a matter of fact. Cut to last summer. I was living at home for a couple of months when my mom texted me, "Liz is on her way to town and they will be staying with us. I won't be home for a couple of hours. Can you prep the guest bedroom just in case I won't make it in time?" To which I responded, "Yeah, of course," and proceeded to make the bed. And as I assumed it was her daughter, I also put the extra mattress for her on the other side of the room, as we usually did. One single duvet for the bed, one single duvet for the mattress, and 2 sets of guest towels on the dresser, again as we usually did for them. My mom comes home, and I go off to the store to get some things for the barbecue that my mother decided we were going to have for them. When I pull up in our driveway, I can see her car, so as I walk through the door I call out, "Hey Liz, hey, not, Tina." As I lay the bags down to take my shoes off, I hear, "Oh wow, apparently I don't even deserve a hello," said in a joking voice, a voice familiar, but I still had no idea who it was, so I walked a little further in, to see a man standing with his arms open for embrace in the kitchen. Tina rushed to hug me, and Liz was in the bathroom. I'm standing there very, very confused by this man, and who he was when it kinda hit me. That's John. Followed immediately by, "No, of course that's not John, this must be some relative or something that has come for a visit." So I hugged him and said something like, "Oh, of course you do, I just thought you would prefer the hug," and hugged this familiar stranger, planning to sneakily ask my mom to remind me who he was. Liz came out of the bathroom, gave me a hug, and walked right past the man, sat down next to my mom at the kitchen table. I motioned for my mom to help me with the alcohol I'd left in the car. When outside, I whispered to her, "Who is that man in the kitchen again?" To which she looked at me like I was a crazy person and said, What do you mean? That's John. He just lost a bit of weight. I realized my initial thought was correct, and that was in fact a skinnier John. I was at a loss for words, and my mom just stared at me, and my surely pale, looked like I've just seen a ghost face, and asked if everything was alright, and all I could say was, "John is dead." She laughed and asked, "What the hell are you talking about? Of course he's not dead. What do you mean?" I explained everything, and how I swear we have talked about his death multiple times since it happened. How it happened. The phone call from Liz when we were making dinner, and even when she had said they in the text. I assumed it was only Liz and Tina, and therefore made the guest bedroom, ready only for the two of them. My mom looked extremely confused, but told me what really happened. He did have a stroke and was lying unconscious outside, and neither Liz nor Tina would have been home for hours if Liz had not forgotten something at the house, and had to drive back to get it, arriving just minutes after John had fallen unconscious. She was able to call emergency services and get John into the car. He was a big man. It must have taken incredible strength, and drive towards the ambulance. This ultimately saved his life. He would not have survived if she had not forgotten her keys. He has apparently come over many times with Liz and Tina and stayed at our house in the last few years. Me and my mom brushed this off as a huge misunderstanding, which it probably is, but I still feel weird about the whole situation, as the fact that he died and the sorrow following his death still feels so true. What do you guys think? A glitch? Alternate reality? Me being crazy? Or just a misunderstanding? Questions from 1986. John who died? John who's still alive? I certainly don't believe this could be a misunderstanding, because John apparently came over a few times since you thought he died. If that's the case, you couldn't have missed him. This whole situation would have been brought up back then, because you would have still believed he was dead. So you wouldn't have waited until now to question, why is John alive? Frankly, the most simple solution is quantum immortality. He did die in a different universe, exactly as you remember, but in this one, he was saved, purely if not for Liz forgetting something back at home. Sometimes these small choices we make, or even small accidents in this case, they have profound ripple effects throughout the entirety of our history, even human history. I always like to come back to the butterfly effect, where a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil and causes a hurricane in Florida. Because of chaos, even the tiniest change in the input variable creates vastly different divergent endpoints, or even through paths. Even the smallest action we take can have incredible meaning. We just won't always be aware, because we don't know what would have happened if we didn't make those choices. You can't go back and replay. At least, we're not aware if we can. Now time for the joke of the day. According to my 10-year-old, the thing about dad jokes is, you just change the D to B, and you have the truth. Yeah, I can't argue with that, but they're so bad, they're good. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.